Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in for the final part of our two-part series on conversion tracking within AdWords. I'm Whitney, and I'm over here at Google headquarters in Mountain View, California. I'm joined again by my colleague, Katie. She's one of our resident analytics experts, so we're super lucky to have her joining us today for this. Last week, we talked about conversion tracking in general and using the tools available within AdWords to track your business goals. Today, we're actually going to discuss some more advanced conversion tracking options using Google Analytics and some cool features within that. If you haven't had a chance to watch last week's video, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's really great and can kind of help focus your thinking on what business goals you want to track and the best ways to do that within AdWords. You can find that on our community page or on our YouTube channel. But if you, are interested in more advanced options, this video is going to be really great for you today. So Katie, do you mind giving us a super quick intro?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Whitney said, today we're going to talk about some other ways that you can track conversions for your business through Google Analytics. So we're going to focus on setting up goals and then also talk a little bit about setting up e-commerce tracking if you are an e-commerce site. I can't stress the importance of setting up some sort of conversion tracking for your business. It's really crucial to have this data in order to see how your business is doing, how advertising is affecting your business, if it is actually beneficial, if there are things that you can change. So this is just another way that you can do this.
Yeah, and a really quick thing to note, there is a Q&A feature if you're watching on our Google Plus page live. So go ahead and throw any questions you have on there, and you can also add them as comments in our community page, and we'll make sure to get to those later on. So keep your eye out for answers for those. And let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is actually using the goals feature within Google Analytics. Goals are a super powerful way to actually help you track different sorts of business objectives. One thing I always tell advertisers is when you're sitting down to decide what you want to track with your advertising, you want to think about macro and micro conversions. Macro conversions are those bigger business goals, right? Let's say I run a sports gear store and I sell equipment. A macro conversion for me would be the completion of a purchase. Micro conversions are actually the building blocks that lead up to that macro conversion. A micro conversion may be somebody signing up for my newsletter for my store. That indicates that the user is interested in staying connected, and I'm then going to have an opportunity to market to them specifically about that and hopefully lead them to completing that macro conversion of a sale there. What's really nice about setting up goals in Google Analytics is you can track both these micro and macro conversions, whereas conversion tracking using the AdWords pixel generally considered best for the macro conversion. Goals are really great to measure the value you're getting from all the visits to your store or your app or to your site. You can track things like somebody playing a video, somebody signing up for a newsletter, or somebody actually completing a purchase on your shopping cart. Unlike AdWords conversion tracking, which only tracks people who clicked on your ad and then completed a conversion, analytics goals are going to track users coming in from all sources and mediums. So you get a lot of information about how people are finding you and the paths they're taking to get there. Katie, do you mind telling us a little bit about what sorts of goals we have available?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing to keep in mind is that goals are set up in analytics in the account view. So once you go into the account, if you're following along with us, you'll want to be in a specific view to set up a goal. So I'll start by telling you about the different types of goals that you can set up. There are a couple of different ways to set them up, but essentially they are all tracking an action that a user takes on your site. They're doing something specific that would be beneficial, and that's what we're wanting to track. So the first type of goal we're going to talk about is a destination URL goal. This tracks when somebody gets to a specific page of your site, and that signals that they did something that was beneficial for your business. So for example, if they filled out a contact us form, they get to a little page that says thank you for contacting us, you would set up a destination URL goal for that page, and you would know then that that person had contacted you. There are a lot of examples of different pages that would be beneficial if they made a purchase, if they filled out any sort of form. Those would all be destination URL goals. So it tracks when they get to a page that signals that. The second type of goal that will track a user action on your site is an event goal. So this will show you when a user clicks on a link or a button on your site. Oftentimes these are used when a destination URL goal doesn't make sense or can't work because you don't have a unique page for that action. So an event goal can be used to just track when they click on a button. For example, if they click to play a video, if they click to download an ebook or something like that, that's what event goals are used for. Keep in mind mind for these that you do need to set up event tracking as well. That's kind of how the event goal will actually work. The two other types of goals track user engagement. So there's the first type is the content that they view on your site. So if you want to track if they have viewed maybe 3 or 4 pages of your site, you can set up a goal that will track that as a goal if they've viewed multiple pages. The second type is time on your site. So if you think that it's beneficial for your business, if they are spending more time on your site, say 10 minutes or more, you could set up a goal for that. So those are really tracking how users are engaging with your site, and you can track conversions with those. So those are the 4 different types of goals. We're going to jump right into an account and talk about setting up the first type that I mentioned, a destination URL goal. So let's go ahead and jump into the analytics account, and I'll walk you guys through the process. So once you're signed into Google Analytics, you'll want to go ahead and click on the Admin tab up at the top. And then make sure that you're clicked into the right account and property that you're wanting to set this up in. And then in the last column on the right, you'll make sure you're in the right view. And then underneath that, click on the Goals option. And you'll click on the red plus new goal. And then here you have some options. Right now what we're going to do, because we kind of have some specific we know we want to set up, you'll choose the custom little button down at the bottom and then go to the next step. Here you'll give your goal a name. So if this is a contact us form that they're filling out, you could just type that in. And we're going to select that this is a destination URL goal. So that's really important to make sure you're choosing the right type. Otherwise, it won't quite make sense when we go to the next step. And really, what we're doing on this page is defining the page that is going to signal that an action was completed. So, for example, if I go to a contact form, I need to fill it out first. And usually, when I hit submit, I will get to another page. Thank you for contacting us, or something like that. So the URL of that page is what we want to put in here. So one thing to keep in mind is that you don't put in the entire URL. So if it's xyz.com/thankyou, you won't put in the actual domain. You'll just put in /thankyou. So whatever that page URI is what you put in here. So let's go ahead and type that in for us. We'll just do /thankyou. And really what I want to stress here is that a lot of people do not put in the correct URL. So make sure you're not putting in the page before they submit the goal or submit whatever the form is. You want to make sure that you have the final confirmation page or thank you page that's put in here. The next thing I'll mention is the match type. So what we have here right now is equals to. There are other match types that are begins with, or you could use a regular expression. These are used, for example, if you have, maybe multiple pages that would be considered the same goal, but they're slightly different. You could do equals to if they, or excuse me, begins with. If they all start with thank you, but then have something dynamic at the end, you could do that match type. Regular expression allows for the most flexibility, but it does obviously require some knowledge of how to use regular expressions. So just keep that in mind, that there are some different ways to match these for a goal completion. The next thing that we'll talk about here really quickly are the funnel steps. And a funnel is used to really track the steps that people have taken on their way to a goal completion. So for example, if you have a form that somebody submits that maybe is 3 or 4 pages long, you want to see if maybe some people are starting the form and not completing it. A funnel will allow you to put in those specific URLs of those steps leading up to a goal. So let's actually jump back into the goal that we just created, and I'll show you how this works. You'll turn the funnel option on, and then you'll see that you can add steps here. You can give it a name, so if you want like form step 1 or form page 1 or something like that, the name is arbitrary. You can choose whatever you want, and then you'll put in the page URIs exactly as we did for the others. This is a really great way to see, like I mentioned, where people are coming in and dropping off in the flow to complete a conversion. Keep in mind that this will only impact the goal funnel reports in your analytics account. So it doesn't actually change the goals that are completed or that we track. It will just change the view of the funnel visualization report in the account. Okay, so one last thing before we move on here are the values that you can set for a goal. You can, if you turn the value option on, you can define a value for this. Usually this is used if maybe you are tracking leads and leads lead to, and typically for your business, lead to a certain amount of revenue for you. So then you could give this a value of, you know, say 10% of what that revenue is going to be if that is the value of a lead to you. So it is going to be a static value. It's not going to change depending on you know, what the user actually did, but good to do some analysis to see if that would apply. And then once you have everything all set up, you can click the Verify This Goal button down at the bottom. I highly recommend doing this because this will oftentimes tell you if you've set it up correctly or not. If it says 0% and you know that you've had some forms filled out in the last couple of days, then there's probably something that you need to change there. Okay, so that is everything about destination URL goals. And one thing that I just really want to stress is that this is a great way, even as Whitney said, if you're tracking a micro conversion, even if it's not a sale, but it's something that is important to your business, you want to see how many people are interacting with your site, if they are filling out forms, and where they came from. You know, it's not going to be just people from AdWords. It's going to be all sources to your website. You can see how they're interacting with your business.
Yeah, goal reports consolidate a lot of useful information about user behavior in one place easily in analytics. So it's also a nice way to kind of cut through the white noise of Google Analytics and focus in on the data that you're interested in. But let's say you do set up some goals that you're interested in importing into AdWords as just pure conversion tracking. That's actually pretty easy to do as well. So once we've got these goals set up, we're going to want to go ahead and make sure that we've linked our AdWords with our analytics account. So we're going to jump back into that analytics account and I'll show you how to do this linking. It's pretty basic actually. You're going to want to go back into just the main admin page within analytics. And then in the property column, that middle column there, you're going to want to click on AdWords linking. From here, you're going to see if there are any already linked AdWords accounts or accounts available to be linked. Now, the important thing to keep in mind here is the linking is done based on an email. So you do need to make sure that you have emails with administrative privileges in AdWords and also edit privileges on the property level within analytics. Just makes sense. We want to make sure that we are linking the right information to the right account here. Once you've done that, you can actually go in and configure this link. And we can make sure that we've A, selected the right AdWords account, and B, we're also selecting the right views to link. I see a lot of people miss this step here where they don't link any data. You can link an account to an AdWords account to an analytics account and not have any data flow. So you want to make sure that you are selecting the correct view here. In this instance, it's just going to be all website data. This is a pretty basic analytics setup. And once you're there, you're going to go ahead and link accounts. I will name it first. So you'll also see that under there it says creating this link enables auto tagging for all linked AdWords accounts. Just one thing to double check, auto tagging is the way in which information gets pushed from AdWords into analytics. You can also double check that auto tagging has been set up within the AdWords account. If you have any questions about that, it's under account settings. So you can actually go ahead and manually link your AdWords links if you need to, if that's something that's required for your business, but I tend to recommend just using auto tagging. It works pretty seamlessly, makes your life a lot easier. Now, the only other thing to check is that analytics is enabled to share data with other Google products. This is also a step that sometimes people forget about. So if we're looking at this admin bar in the account column, which is that one on the far left, you're going to want to go ahead and go into account settings. And then scroll down under data sharing settings and just make sure that this is sharing information with other Google products. You'll notice that that is the top option there. If that's not checked, no data is going to flow even if you've done the linking correctly. So just worth, if you have any questions, you're not seeing the numbers you expect to see, just worth double checking that this is the case. And once you've made all the changes that you want, you can go ahead and press save. Now, we don't have our AdWords account pulled up, but if we did, we would be able to show you, if you pop into Tools and then Conversions, once you have conversions coming in from AdWords users within Analytics, you can go ahead and import those. So it's pretty easy. The data flows between the two accounts. You can go ahead and set up that link and make sure that all the valuable information that you have in Analytics is getting pushed into AdWords and vice versa.
Yep. Absolutely. So we've kind of gone thoroughly over all of the different types of goals that you can set up, how you can import them into AdWords. The next thing that we want to talk about is e-commerce tracking. So this is another way to track an action on your website, specifically a purchase. I highly recommend using this option if you are an e-commerce site. Basically, if somebody can make a purchase on your website, you should be using e-commerce tracking. The really cool thing about this is that it doesn't necessarily just track, okay, they visited this page or they made a purchase. It pulls in a lot of information. So you can see exact revenue values, you can see how many transactions occurred, you can get specific product data, transaction IDs, SKUs. There's just so much valuable information that comes from this. So if you are looking at, okay, which micro conversions do I set up, which macro conversions do I set up, definitely set up some goals. You can use a combination of both, but make sure that if you are an e-commerce site that you're looking into setting up e-commerce tracking so you can get this data. Also, just a quick note before we go into how you set this up, e-commerce data can also be imported into AdWords, just as a goal would be. So you can see those transaction values and revenue numbers within AdWords in some of those reports. So really cool. Let's go ahead and jump back into the analytics account, and I'll show you the couple of steps necessary to set this up. So what you'll do from here, you'll want to go into, once you're signed in, make sure you're in the right account, property, and view. Always start with that. And in the view column, click on e-commerce settings down there. And you'll want to make sure that you enable e-commerce. So you'll see that right now it's turned on. By default, it is turned off. So just make sure that you edit that little option and turn that on. And that's the first step. You'll see there's also an option for enhanced e-commerce. I'll just mention this quickly. I would say for most people, if you have, if you're just getting started with tracking e-commerce, you're going to do the basic type of e-commerce tracking. So you won't need to enable enhanced e-commerce. Sometimes people get confused. There is actually a difference between the two. Enhanced e-commerce does require slightly different code setup. So keep that in mind. If you're not going to do enhanced e-commerce, then don't turn that on and make sure you're setting up the right code. So that's actually all that we do in the account. Very simple. Set that up, and then the next step is to configure your tracking code. So this isn't something that's actually given to you in the account, but I'll just tell you a little bit about it. You'll want to make sure that your standard tracking code is on the thank you page or the confirmation page. That's the first step. And then there's some additional code that you will implement on that page. And we do have really great instructions on how to set up the e-commerce code and all of the different elements that are required. You will want to work with a developer to set this up because it's not just a standard snippet that we'll give you and you can copy and paste onto the site. It requires some coding knowledge in order to set it up properly, and we really want to make sure that it is tracking accurate revenue values. So talk to your developers if this is something that you're going to set up, and then make sure that you look in our help center for all of the instructions on the actual code implementation portion of this. So before we move on, we also wanted to talk about kind of the importance of the difference between goals and e-commerce tracking. I know we've kind of alluded to it a couple of different times, but just to reiterate, goals can be used to track actions on your website. They're very great for tracking a lot of those micro conversions. E-commerce is so important to use if you are an e-commerce site. The main difference that I think e-commerce, I guess, adds, the main value that it adds is that you can track the dynamic values of each purchase. You can add a value to a goal and it will track that, but it's not going to change with a purchase. So that's the main thing with e-commerce, is that it pulls in the dynamic actual transaction values. So important for accurate revenue tracking and being able to see which source led to an actual purchase. So that's kind of the main difference, but both are definitely valuable to use.
For sure. And kind of veering away from analytics for a little bit, there is another conversion tracking feature within AdWords that I really like a lot, which is actually available on the My Client Center level. So this is for people who are managing multiple AdWords accounts under one kind of umbrella login within that MCC structure. And this is called cross-account conversion tracking. This is really great if you are managing multiple accounts that have generally the same conversion. Let's say I manage the AdWords accounts for a hotel chain, and each location has their own AdWords account within one kind of MCC login. And I want to track people who have booked rooms across all of those accounts. Enabling conversion tracking on the MCC level actually allows you to make sure that you're not getting duplicate conversions if we have the same conversion code on different sort of landing pages, and it also allows you to see cross-site conversion funnels, which is really cool. So this isn't related to the analytics tracking, so you can't actually import goals in e-commerce as a cross-account conversion. So if you are interested in tracking that sort of e-commerce revenue, it's not for you. But if you're thinking, okay, I'm managing multiple accounts that have the same business goal, that have that same macro conversion, it's way easier and has a lot of really cool reporting features that aren't available within kind of a normal account level conversion code. So super easy to set up within your MCC. Just go ahead and go to that conversion section. You're going to generate a conversion pixel just as if you would within a regular child account and place that on the page. And then you can actually pick which accounts it gets applied to. One really important thing to note with the cross-account conversion tracking is you can only pick one or the other, either cross-account conversion tracking or tracking on the individual account level. So if you do enable cross-account conversion tracking in a single AdWords account, you can't use individual conversion tracking within that account. So in the instance where you have the same business goal for all of the accounts that you're managing, it's going to make your life so much easier and just make reporting super simple on the MCC level there. And yeah, that's about all that we have for you guys today. I know that we covered a lot, so I just want to give a quick plug for the AdWords and Analytics Help Centers, as well as our developer guides. They're really, really great. They have all of this information and so much more about all of these advanced conversion tracking features. So definitely feel free to use those resources. Send us any questions you may have. We'll make sure to address those. And other than that, we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.